So hello and welcome to the first webinar hosted by the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre. I'm Detective Inspector Fiona Bail and our topic today is hybrid working, staying cyber resilient no matter where you work. To discuss this with me is Maria Bada and Francis West, who will introduce themselves in just one moment. Just to let you know, we're recording this discussion and we'd like this to be an interactive session. So if you have any questions or comments, please pop them into the chat. And this is being monitored by Jane from our comms team. We're going to be speaking for about 30 to 40 minutes before having a 5-minute break, at which point we're going to be asking you to do a little task before coming back and discussing it with us. So over to Maria. Can you just give a brief introduction?
Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure being part of the first webinar of the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre. And my name is Maria Bada, and I'm actually a research fellow at the Cambridge Cybercrime Centre. So I kind of represent academia in this webinar. My research focuses around the human factors of cybercrime and cybersecurity. So looking at aspects such as the resilience of employees, the offender side, the victim side, and everything in between, I would say. So it's a kind of multidisciplinary approach in research. So this is my background. Francis, could you introduce yourself as well, please?
Thank you so much, Maria. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much for allowing me to come and join your session today. I don't know if people can't maybe see, but I've been in this game, the IT support game, for the last 30 years, and I can only describe as what I've seen in the last 3 years as a tsunami of cyber attacks, and especially on smaller businesses. And for that reason, I decided to make it my mission. And my mission is to educate and protect at least 1 million people from hackers and scammers by 2023. And I sit on 4 different security panels now, and I do so many of these sessions just to help and educate and spread the word, because, we'll probably talk about it later, but almost on a daily basis, I'm dealing with people that's been scammed or they've been hacked and lost thousands and thousands of pounds, in some cases, ending up in divorces. Because when people lose their businesses, family gets very unhappy, take the kids out of private school, and then everything becomes really sticky at home, and then the relationships break up, and it's really sad. And this stuff could be avoided, but and this is why I beg people today to listen to the advice and take action. I post every single day on LinkedIn, so please look me up and follow me. And I just, again, to create awareness. And one of my challenging questions are, why are you making it so easy for the hackers and scammers? And hopefully with our advice today, we're going to help you make it much harder for them. So please listen, follow the advice, and be safe.
That's brilliant from you to Francis. So if we go over to a bit of background about why this topic is still relevant. So last year, we've seen substantial changes in our working environment, and even with the lockdown ending, most businesses have accepted there'll be an increase in remote and sort of blended working. And according to the Office of National Statistics, in 2019, only 27% of the UK workforce was working remotely, but that figure jumped to an average of 37%, although that widely varied according to which sector you're within. So with information and communications, that's reporting 81% people working from home, with professional, scientific and technical activities close behind with 71%. And then Biz has done a survey showing that 24% of businesses intend to use increased home working as a permanent business model going forward, with another 28% of businesses not quite sure what they're going to do at this time. So it looks like working from home or hybrid working is here to stay. And as well as businesses adapting, criminals have also adapted to the change in our working environment. A Data Basics report said that phishing emails have spiked by over 600% since the end of February, that first pandemic, as cyber criminals look to capitalise on the fear and uncertainty generated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And then of those surveyed, 44% said that they didn't provide any cybersecurity training from their staff, and that 47% of employees cited distraction as a reason for falling for a phishing scam from working from home. And we can also see this locally, where figures from, if you compare May 2020 to this year's May, shows a 42% increase in businesses reporting cybercrime to Action Fraud. And this year alone, 144 businesses in the Eastern region have reported cybercrime to Action Fraud, with over £8,000 loss. So as we know that businesses don't report to police, this is likely to be vastly underrepresented, and it's really important to show why businesses should be talking to the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre and just taking some foundation cyber resilience steps. So Maria, can you explain what the difference is between hybrid or blended working?
Yes, so thank you actually for providing these statistics. It kind of illustrates the situation, and I would say that phishing attacks are actually the most prevalent type of attack still. And actually we see the numbers rising and rising. And as you said, we saw a large amount of employees working from home, and it happened suddenly. No one was really prepared. Businesses didn't have a plan on remote working. They didn't provide training to employees, as you very correctly mentioned, and that immediately caused an issue and potential security risks or privacy risks. So we saw that new model of either blended kind of approach of remote working, the hybrid approach as we call it, where someone might either work full-time from home or from a location away from their usual kind of workplace location, office location, or use an approach where they would go in for a day a week, or 2 days a week. But the interesting approach, the interesting aspect in this new situation is that it's not just the employee working from home or from that location. It's also school children or parts of the family who are all together in the same location, using the same network, or even in some cases using the same computers and laptops, and that causes huge amounts of concern in terms of privacy, as I mentioned, and security. Definitely that situation made us more vulnerable to attacks, and we've seen that the stats kind of clearly show that employees, but also employers, were not really prepared for something like that. And if we were concerned previously, the previous years, about the lack of resilience of employees and how they were falling victims to phishing attacks, now with the new situation, I think the concern is even more.
Brilliant. Francis, I mean, we're talking about blended sort of approaches where businesses and people come in and only have a couple of days in the office. Is there actually any difference in sort of cyber resilience where people are fully at home or fully in the office compared to that blended approach?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this since, you know, again, like I said, being in the game for over 30 years, you know, work is something you do. It's not a place you go to, and that's always been the case. However, now since last March, when COVID hit, you know, the whole landscape has changed, and we call it the security perimeter. If you think in the old days, you know, people used to go to the office and they used to work in the office, and they at least had security on most of their computers. They had a firewall. They had, you know, maybe an IT company that looked after them, or internal IT department that looked after them. So their levels of security and awareness was fairly high. And now all of a sudden, like Maria's already alluded to, they go home and they're connecting to the same wireless network as their partner, their daughter, their son. And none of those other devices have the same level of protection as the work device. And what's now worse that we're seeing, is especially with the hybrid solution, is that they now take this work laptop and they take it back to the office and plug into the same network without really knowing whether that device is not carrying infections. I think there's so many similarities, and dare I say, between COVID and cybersecurity, because if you're in the same room as an infected person, I'm talking now pre-COVID injections or jabs, you know, your chance of getting infected was fairly high. So if you're sitting on the same wireless network as your son, who's a big gamer, I'm speaking of experience here, and he's downloading some dodgy mods from some gaming website and infecting his machine, what do you think is going to happen to that infection? It's just going to simply propagate to every other machine, including mobile devices, and now take that back to the office. So I think that, you know, it is just taking this these infections and spreading them worse than wildfire. That's number one. Number two, the other thing I think what people need to think about is what we call the surface area. You know, it's how many more devices are people now actually using, whereas before the office maybe they just had the PC. So now they've got a laptop, they've got a work mobile, they've got maybe a what do you call it, an iPad or another pad, and a lot of these mobile devices that we're seeing are completely unprotected. So therefore, you know, you almost have to think about surface area like all these extra windows and doors that's all of a sudden been added to your house. How are you protecting all those? And that's you know, my answer to your question, because it's exploded, which means we've got so many more areas to think about and to protect.
So in terms of what businesses should be worried about, are there anything, you know, that you think they should be focusing on first, I suppose?
Maria?
I think we touched upon some of the issues that they should be worrying about, such as using a secure network or a secure Wi-Fi, or not really using an unsecure mobile phone to check business emails. As I said, not using the same laptop doing work, but also kind of accessing personal emails or different accounts. But one of the main issues that I continue actually mentioning all the time are kind of the human aspect. So if you haven't provided training to employees about the potential risks or how they can take measures to protect themselves, not just related to work, but also in their everyday life, because their everyday life and circumstances will reflect on how actually they behave at work. Then they have to take measures like that. They need to provide some type of training for employees, or if they haven't provided specific tools to employees, because that is the case also, especially when we talk about SMEs. They don't have a specific policy for working from home, or they haven't really provided specific guidance to employees of how to use a VPN, or which tools they can actually use, such as, I don't know, password managers or other tools. That kind of needs to be in place, because we really don't know how the kind of remote working model will end up working. So will it be in the short term? Will it be in the long term? For example, we had an announcement last week by Deloitte, actually inviting employees to work from home forever. So we see kind of a change, especially in large organizations. So these are issues that if someone hasn't really considered, they will need to at some point. But for me, as I said, an issue of real importance is actually providing training and kind of protecting the employee.
So you sort of mentioned about the policies that businesses have, and actually where Deloitte is saying that their staff can work from home permanently. Are we going to actually come to a point where cyber resilience is going to be written into almost the employee contracts? So if staff work from home, should there be potentially a contractual part that actually they need to set up a VPN for their work accounts? I mean, what do you think, Maria and Francis?
Yes, so I think definitely if organizations are moving towards that pathway in terms of working, definitely there have to be such policies in place or guidance in place, requirements, because especially when you hire an employee and they're not security experts, they need to have that kind of guidance. Otherwise, I don't think it will work. Yeah. So either specific training or pre-setting up some things, such as, I don't know, for example, built-in firewalls, so that an employee will not have to set up firewall, but also providing training to them, and guidance is of great importance. But Francis, what do you think?
Well, you know me, I just want to fix it. I don't want to talk about it. I think what you said so far, the guidance, the policies, all that, to me is a given. But let's look at some practical things that you can do. So the first thing that I always advise my clients to do, well, from day one, even before COVID, is to set up a guest Wi-Fi. In other words, most people don't even know this, but on your home router or home firewall device, you can actually log on to if you log on to the section to where you do the configuration, go to the Wi-Fi section, and you'll see your existing Wi-Fi network listed there. And then you click on add, you can add a second one. And when you add your second one, call it my work home Wi-Fi and give it a password. And whatever you do, do not share that password with your kids or even with your partner. Because what you then do, the moment you click OK to save, you'll see on your phone or on your laptop, will pop up new work Wi-Fi. You disconnect from your home Wi-Fi, you reconnect to this newly created Wi-Fi, and guess what you've just done? You've just self-isolated, note the pun, your work devices from the rest of the home devices. So even if any of the home devices or network or your children gets infected, that infection can't physically jump over from one wireless network to another if you configure it properly. So that to me is and if you don't know how to do it, phone version or BT or TalkTalk is going to take you longer to get through to them, I promise you, than to actually set this up. And then say you have this mad South African person telling you you've got to set up a guest Wi-Fi, and just do it, because that's the first thing you need to do. The second thing for me that you need to do is, people talk a lot about VPNs. I think VPNs are the most dangerous things on the planet. And why do I say that? Because most people don't configure them properly. A VPN transfers data securely from your laptop to the other side. But what do you think happens when an infection? So if your laptop gets infected, that infection will just simply securely transfer to your main server or whatever at the office. And how is that a good idea? So please, if you are going to use VPNs, make sure that only traffic that's meant to goes through the VPN tunnel. Otherwise, you are exposing every other connected user that also working from home. So what we've seen in the past, where one user gets infected by a VPN, and then the server that's connected to other VPN users that all get taken out at the same time. So please be careful. The second thing, or third thing, is one thing I see all the time. People allow their kids to charge their mobile phones or their devices on the USB port on the side of their laptops, and then wonder why they get infected. So why? Because unless you know for a fact that that Android phone or whatever mobile device is 100% clear, which you don't know, the moment you plug it into, because it's effectively a USB stick, the moment you plug it into your laptop, you've just transferred that infection. So my advice here is simply buy either those new sockets, you can get them from Screwfix, where you can replace the plugs with a USB charging points, or go onto Amazon, buy extra charging points. But whatever you do, never, ever, ever allow your kids or your partner to plug in their phones to charge on your work laptop.
I suppose moving on from that is actually the use of your work devices, and again allowing other people to use them, and having just the simple things of actually shutting your laptop, locking your laptop when you go to the toilet if you've got kids around, just to make sure that they can't actually go in and just download something on the sly.
Yeah, you won't believe it. I must quickly show you. I don't know if people can see this, but I've got this brilliant device now that I'm recommending to people. You can buy it off Amazon. It's made by Ben's, BENS, and it's.
Hang on, Francis. I can't get you to show up on the screen.
Yeah, no, it's anyway. I'll just tell you. It looks like a little USB stick. You go onto Amazon and type in BENNS. And it allows you, if your laptop doesn't do fingerprint recognition, you can stick it in the side and set up what we call hello. And then from that moment forward, you can log in with the fingerprint on your laptop, which means the moment you walk away, you can just, the Windows and L, that's Windows and L for Lima, you lock your mobile device, walk away, and then your kids can't unlock your computer, even though they've stood behind you one day and looked at when you typed in your password, and now they know what your password is, so they're going to get you anyway.
I have to share the story though of saying passwords and fingerprints. So we were away, and I've got a fingerprint lock on my phone, and my child has clearly watched too many spy movies, because there he is trying to get my fingerprint off a glass and then actually applying it to my phone to try and unlock it. So absolutely brilliant, but as long as I suppose the tech actually works
Does he need a
properly.
job? I think it's brilliant. That is ingenious.
I'm just glad it didn't work, and I'm not, although, you know, I've never actually tested it to see whether a true fingerprint would work. I'm hoping that the technology is good enough not to be like that.
Yeah, the newer ones are much harder to crack.
Yeah. So I suppose
Fiona, can I mention something? Because apart from USB sticks, there are kind of innocent devices that we don't really consider as potentially risky, such as, for example, devices, Fitbits, that everyone is using at the moment, and they're either connected wirelessly to your laptop. It might be your actually work laptop, and the potential risks again are really great, and no one is really considering that they could originate from smart devices. Just mentioning that.
So is that more of sort of the Internet of Things actually sort of encroaching into workspaces as well?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they are so dangerous. They're so dangerous, and I'll tell you why they're dangerous. Because if you go onto a website there, I'll share the showdown, shodan.io, you can see all these Internet of Things devices that are completely unprotected for anybody to log on and have a look. And you can get into industrial control systems, gaming systems, people's CCTV cameras in their bedrooms. You don't want to know. And so again, the advice there is, if you have any device that's plugging into the internet, make sure that default password has been changed and it's not the same as any other password you've ever used. Remember ring.com? Did you remember that when that came last year? How many people's ring.com? So what they do is, once they're in your ring.com, they can monitor your behavior. They know when you're leaving, they know when you're coming back, they know if you've got kids. So why are you making it so easy for the hackers and scammers?
I think moving on from that sort of side is actually the awareness of IoT being insecure and actually knowing what your devices are doing. So I know there was, when smart fridges came out, there were a couple of people who had botnets and actually crypto miners put onto that smart device, and thousands of pounds worth of electricity mining crypto for someone. Yeah. And I guess that having those sort of guest network VPNs actually having IoT separately would have sorted that problem.
Yeah, because again, yeah, if you have but the problem there was, number one, they got into the fridge, and number two, there was no password on the fridge. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. And the same goes for printers. This is a party piece I want you to do, and I don't encourage people to hack into people's systems. However, when you go and visit your friends again, when you're allowed to, open up your phone and go file print and see if you can print something to their printer. Because if you can print to their printer, you can hack into the entire network at home, which means you can then get into their work Wi-Fi, down the VPN tunnel, straight into the main office. Job done. Very important, this stuff. Please take note.
So I guess there are things that business owners need to do around their staff, as in education policies and actually making staff aware of what happens. And then there's things that staff themselves can do. Where those service providers are. So there's been a bit in the news about third places of work. So we have our home, we have our office, and then we have those shared co-working spaces, which seems to be gaining quite a lot, I suppose, of followers, where people can't work from home but don't want to go into the office. Have you got any comments, I suppose, around how the considerations that we should be thinking about when we use those spaces? Francis is smiling. Go on, Francis.
Yeah, this is such a favorite one of mine, because you know when you go to these places and you connect to the Wi-Fi network, you know what it says just underneath the connection?
No.
It says Unsecured Networks.
Yes.
Why does it say Unsecured Network, Fiona?
Because it's not secure.
There you go. Funny that, isn't it? Hey? Why are people connecting to unsecure networks and then wonder why they get hacked? So my advice there again is even if you go to these offices, rather turn on your tethering, in other words, make your phone a hotspot and rather connect to that. Because you can't guarantee me that if you're connecting to this unsecure network, that if somebody like me or somebody else sitting there with what we call a packet sniffer, I can see every single packet that goes through the air, and I can capture every single keystroke that you type in. Whereas if you connect to one of these, it's so much harder to do that. And the same logic applies to when you're on the train, or when you go to a hotel or golf course or to your mate's house. Same logic applies.
So I was thinking for industrial espionage, sorry if I can get the words out, if you're aware that someone actually goes to use one of those work sites, what's the chance that you can actually rent out the office before them and put in a device which actually captures everything on that network that they're using?
Do you want me to show you how it's done?
Go for it.
Okay, this, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you can see, is called a pineapple. So a pineapple is a hacking device. I promise you, I only do this for demonstration purposes. So what you do is you go there in the morning, you find the landing page, of their Wi-Fi, you copy it, you duplicate it, you save it on this little memory stick that's inside this pineapple, and then you rename it and you put -free, and you won't believe how many people will actually log on to the free one. And then what we do is we redirect them to the real one. They go, oh, that's a funny blip, and then they log in. But then every keystroke they type there onwards is then saved onto this memory chip. That's how easily it's done.
Maria, is it human behavior, do you think, that sort of just makes us go for the easiest path?
It's definitely human behavior, and that's why I will mention actually an example. A lot of companies are using phishing simulations as a way to train employees of how to not just spot the phishing email, but also what to do when actually that happens, to report the phishing email and so on. However, we see that human behavior doesn't really work in a kind of like structured, the kind of environment where this is this is a training. This could be a phishing simulation or a phishing email, sorry, where you kind of like pay attention. We have many examples of even security experts and employees where they had to go around security to actually do their tasks. So they had to kind of ignore VPN connections in order to actually log into a system that wouldn't connect because they're working from home, or they had to kind of like sacrifice security. So we have basically humans taking decisions like that, knowing that they could potentially end up being risky, and humans who actually ignore security and they just want the easy way out, basically, and convenience, I would say. So convenience wins so far. We haven't really managed to change that. But I would say that this so far, hotspots for hackers were cafes with open Wi-Fi's. Now I can see what you were describing earlier, Francis, being the kind of hotspot for hackers, new places where they will become the new cafes, new coffee shops.
Mm.
Let me share with you something. So by the way, Fiona, I can see your desktop. I don't know if you wanted me to just see that, but I can see your full desktop right now. And considering that's much better, considering we're talking about this stuff, I like to keep the data a little bit private. So, did you know, a lot of people like Twitter, right? Did you know that if your Twitter account has geolocation turned on,
Mm-hmm.
I can track and find out exactly where you are, probably within a couple of meters, and especially if you're tweeting a lot from, let's say, your house or from a normal Costa Coffee or wherever coffee place, I can, within a minute or two, I can track where you are. So this stuff is so important to turn off. I'm delighted now that, for instance, with Apple, that they've now, there was a lot of hoo-ha, but now when you open an app up, it says, would you like me to track you? And I think 86% of people now saying no, which is fantastic. But please, you need to look at all your social media accounts and make sure that geolocation is turned off and anything to do with your location is turned off, because otherwise people know where you are, they can find you, and it makes it much easier for them to extort you or attack you from a ransomware perspective.
I suppose that goes into actually just standard crime as well, because burglars would love to know when you're going on holiday. And actually that, you know, sharing, oh yeah, 1 week to go until I'm jetting off with my whole family to for a wedding is perfect for them to actually be able to target you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are people making it so easy?
Yeah.
I keep on saying this because it's true. It's just it's beyond me. But anyway, this is why we do what we do here. Is about educating people. You know, that's why, you know, if you listen to this, make sure that these videos are played, or the session is played back to your staff on a regular basis, or take snippets and make one person in your business responsible. Call him or her the cyber person, and at least once every week, every 2 weeks, you know, have a topic that's discussed and that goes out to everybody. Because this is a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. So we've been speaking for about half an hour now, and we said that we were going to have a 5-minute break and see if we've got some people who are willing to do a task. So I'm going to share my screen again. I apologise for sharing it previously, which has a link on it, hopefully, eventually, if I can get it up. Which has a cyber action plan from the NCSC. So this is a series of questions that you can go on and actually answer some questions around your own cyber resilience, either personally or for a business, and actually see where you are sort of stacking up in terms of protecting yourself and your business. So the time is 11:34, I think. So we'll come back in 5 minutes and see how people have got on.
And also, if you can't click on that link for whatever reasons, please just Google NCSC. So that's the National Cybersecurity Center Action Plan, 3 words, and you'll find the very first link in Google will allow you to actually get into it. And you'll see there's one for family or one for business, and they both take about 3 to 5 minutes, and I cannot recommend them enough. Do it twice if you have a business, because do it at business and do it at home with your wife, with your kids, or with your partner, just to see where you are.
Brilliant. See you in 5 minutes.
I think if you're watching this back, then now's the time to do it.
Yeah. I'm
It
very
will only
sorry
take you 3 to 4 minutes. Please get in contact with us, and we will gladly share with you any results.
But I tell you what, I've just done it for myself, and what I actually got out of it was that some of the questions I don't actually know the answer to, because my husband deals with it. So it's one of those, you know, if you don't know, who do you have the question with? And I guess for businesses, it's really important that actually they know who to direct these questions to.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and this is why, you know, for me, when we discuss this stuff, I think from the time a child can swipe left and right, that's when we need to start educating them. You know, it's so important. And I think these questions instantly highlights where the areas that you need to focus on. And my recommendation is, when you do this, especially the family one, do this as a whole family, so that everybody can go, oh, you know, I've had so many incidents now where, and this happened to me many years ago when my 8-year-old was, which was quite a funny story, but it wasn't funny at the time. He runs like Sony PlayStation, and he didn't have multi-factor authentication. This is 4 years ago, turned on. So his account, his FIFA was hacked, and he lost a lot of players. He lost about £300 worth of players. So from that day onwards, he now understands everything about multi-factor authentication, and he turns it on everything he touches, because he doesn't want to lose players again. Because I said, I'm not paying it, but then, you know, I felt terrible, so I did in the end pay for, because maybe it was my fault. I should have checked it, but you know, you don't check this stuff. So yeah,
doesn't that come down to sort of like those the SME actually thinking that you don't have to worry about something until it happens to you? So we see it in previous crime, where someone who gets burgled then will go and secure their premises, and I guess it's trying to get through to them. Don't wait until it happens to you. Do something about it before it happens.
Exactly.
I'm speechless because people say to me, if you look at not Gardner, who's the big insurance, Hosking Insurance now, okay? The latest stat that they published, that every 19 seconds, a small business, a UK company, is suffering a successful cyber attack. Okay, so do the numbers. You are now 9 times more likely to suffer a cyber attack compared to a burglary. Okay, so in my head, if you have a burglary, your insurance firm will pay out. You'll buy a new TV, new this, new that, and your life will move on. When you suffer a cyber attack, only 9% of companies in the UK right now have insurance. In other words, they won't pay out, which means your business comes to a standstill and you can't even send your customers invoices. So this is why this stuff is so important.
And actually, staying with that burglary theme, so what we found was that people who get burgled will get burgled about a month or 2 months later, because the burglars know that the insurance company has replaced all of the stuff you nicked, so actually you can go and do it again. And there's some of the stats recently are coming through saying that if you get hit with ransomware, a couple of months later you get hit again.
Okay, let me just pause on that. You know what I find so fascinating, Fiona, is that, it's almost as if, so you get done by a ransomware. In other words, the software that was supposed to protect you didn't protect you, and now you got done. And then guess what people do? They put the same software back on again, and thinking they're going to be protected the second time round. How's that a good idea?
I'm sure there's a quote about doing the same thing and expecting different results, isn't there?
Yeah, and that's I think that's Einstein that said that. What's the definition of madness? Is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. And that's what happens in the cybersecurity world, And it's sad because people I think the biggest challenge we have is because they can't see it. With the burglary, at least they can see things have disappeared.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
with cyber attack, they can't see it. They can just feel the pain because now nobody can work. Or, all their, what we're seeing now is a double ransom attack. So if you're stupid enough, let me rephrase it. If you're not good enough or clever enough not to pay for ransom in the first place, and let's say you do decide to pay, they do a double attack. So you pay the monies, you get your key, you unlock it, and guess what? Second one is sitting there waiting for you. But just for good measure, they'll take the data that they ransom and they'll start phoning your customers and say, so by the way, your supplier, XYZ supplier, we've got all their data, including your data. So they're coming at so many different angles. And that's why this stuff is so important to take note.
Yeah, I think it is. And also, I suppose from a business's point of view, it's also the information you publicly put out there. So then the news says about the 700 million LinkedIn details, but LinkedIn are saying they've been legitimately scraped from the website. Right? There's no hacking, there's no database intrusion. That's stuff that your company is putting out legitimately, but will get used against you to actually then do those phishing attacks, which look really, really genuine.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think, again, this is what we said earlier, people are relying on let's say if they're using Office 365 or G Suite to do your security. Forget it. You need to have an external email security solution that can that's specifically designed to take out the threats and the attacks before it hits the inbox. Because otherwise you're relying on the end user, somebody who's not trained in cybersecurity, to make that decision. Is this a dodgy email? Yes or no. Should I click on this link? Yes or no. Should I click on the link and put in my credentials? Yes or no. That's why you need multiple layers. The more layers is, what's that saying? There's no such thing as bad weather, it's just bad clothing. And I think when the cybersecurity comes to the same logic, the more layers you have, the more chances will you have forever not to get done. In other words, hackers and scammers are lazy. They'll always go for the easy targets. Don't be one.
That's a nice slogan.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I just wanted to mention that, we see, usually, I totally agree with what you guys mentioned about victimization. First, and second, following victimization is very common. So especially for businesses and SMEs, we see that the kind of functioning model of zero trust is kind of a model that many companies will be using, which again, for me, it's not about only focusing on risks and scaring people, employees, but also businesses, so that, you know, there's zero trust. We don't trust our employees, we don't trust our systems, we don't trust really, because that can potentially cause risks on your culture, and especially because we're talking about remote working. Not trusting employees can cause other types of risks. Losing your culture, as I mentioned, isolating employees is again not what we want. So I would focus more on what can be done, and kind of ensuring that employees are aware of potential threats, as I said, not just in the work environment, but in their everyday life, and just avoiding that kind of fear, or because that leads to helplessness, and helplessness leads in no action. So as you said, people just avoid taking any measures because they don't understand security, or because they actually took measures and they didn't work, so they're victimized. So it's kind of a cycle, and fear definitely doesn't help in that cycle.
Absolutely.
No, because I think sometimes the fear puts people to a state of inaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I did a post on LinkedIn this morning, yeah, and I said, you know, people on purpose turn down their security levels, especially when it comes to multi-factor authentication, because they don't like the pain, it's hassle. You know, cybersecurity is annoying, especially if you put in more layers and extra hoops. But guess what? If you compare that annoyance to suffering a cyber attack or loss of minimum 8,000, you said earlier, Fiona, you know, then all of a sudden the focus changes very quickly. So just rather have little bits of pain every day when you log on, instead of a lot of pain when your business shuts down.
Absolutely. So some of the things we've discussed might be a bit worrying, I suppose, for some of our listeners. Maria, if you had one thing that you would ask everyone to do today, what would that be?
First of all, do the test, the cyber action plan, because it provides useful advice of what you can do if you're not doing it already, which is very specific. And I did it as well, actually, today. And I'm glad that the first kind of action, I pretended being an SME, was train your employees. So for me, it's all about being aware. Whether you will act upon your knowledge or not is maybe kind of a second consideration, but at least you need to be aware of what is happening, not isolating yourself. So that would be my kind of first advice.
Perfect. And Francis, again, one thing that you can get someone to do today.
You're making it really hard for me.
I know.
You know, I can talk about it for hours.
And I thought, no, just
You
one.
know what I want everybody to do?
Yeah.
I want them to take out the spare wheel of their car and leave it in the garage or the carport.
Okay. Would you like to explain further?
No, because you don't need it, don't you? Everything will be fine. You won't ever need that spare wheel ever again. Sorry. Okay. Let me give you one bit of advice, and that it would be the free one, and that is, if I can. Banks have done this years ago. Make a list of every application that you're currently using at the office and at home, and download a Microsoft Authenticator app. It's free. And go through each place. Even if a hacker can steal your username and password or buy it on the internet for less than 1 penny of the dark web, they still can't get in because they don't have your multi-factor authentication code, which only lasts for 30 seconds. If you do just that one thing, I promise you, you're instantly 99% more secure than the rest of the
every step of the way, promoting what you need to know. Is there anything else that you guys would think we haven't covered that we should do?
It's just, for me, it's about taking action. You know, it's people know what they need to do when they've listened to this. And if you don't take action, I would say within 24 hours that you've heard this, you will not take action. And hackers love you. They love you, scammers. They love people that don't take action. So choice is yours. And you know, we say this because, you know, when I'm going to leave you with a story here, Fiona, because this is quite touching for me. But about a month ago, I had a call from a gentleman. He runs a small property management company, 5 staff. He said, "Francis, I've been, you know, you've been recommended. I've been looking at all your LinkedIn posts, and can you help?" I said, "Tell me what happened." He said, "My son is 21. He lives with me at home, and he's in such a state. He thinks he's been hacked, and everybody's after him, and to the extent that they had to section him because he was going completely, he lost it, completely lost it." So I said to him, "Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm really obviously very sorry to hear that, but I said the first thing we need to do is we need to see if what he's thinking is true." So I recommend that we install our security software on all his computers. He's got 5 machines at the office, 3 at home. And if I tell you, within the first 17 minutes, we found stuff on his computers at home and the office that completely concurred with his poor son's mental mindset or scare. I don't know even how to say it best. And half an hour later, we cleaned everything up. But you know, and all this time, his dad was thinking that he was making it up. But he had keyloggers on his machine. He had file sharing software on his machines. You would not believe the amount of stuff that we found. And of course, data was just streaming out of those at home and at the office. At least now it's there. So I had a lovely call last Monday from his son to say, "I'm back at home, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for the help that you've given us as a family, because for the first time ever, I know I can click on anything with the knowledge that I won't get done again." And that to me is priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. Maria, is there anything you'd like to sort of
yeah, just to close by saying that not expecting you will be a victim or the target of an attack is a huge mistake. If you actually are connected to others, or you hold data of your customers, or and you should, even if you connect with others on social media, that means a hacker can get access to them as well. So avoiding that potentially, actually you are a potential victim is a huge mistake. So taking measures before you end up being a victim is really, really important.
Excellent. That's both really good advice, and thank you so much, Maria and Francis, for joining me today. Apologies that our live didn't really work, and it looks like we'll be sharing the video afterwards anyway, so hopefully anyone who missed it will be able to get some really good advice from Maria and Francis.
And thank you for sharing all the stuff, Fiona. And again, if I make one more recommendation is people should buy this book. It's my hero. It's Frank Abagnale. He wrote this book, Scam Me If You Can, and all the proceeds of this book goes to people, older people, like plus 70 around the world, who does not have the time left anymore to make money back after they've been scammed. But read this book, and then once you're done, buy a copy for your brother, your sister, your mother, your uncle, your auntie, everybody, so that we can together help more people.
Lovely. And with those closing remarks, thank you very much. I'll speak again soon.